Amazing act of kindness. Elderly woman faints. Hidden truth uncovered after 2 incredible minutes. The mid-morning sun cast a warm glow over Maplewood as Emily stepped out of the cafe, cradling her steaming coffee like a lifeline. The gentle murmur of conversation filled the air, an echo of the bustling small-town life she adored. Just as she lifted her cup to take a sip, an unsettling commotion broke through the soundscape. All around her, the crowd halted as Mrs. Thompson, the town's beloved storyteller, crumbled to the ground. Emily's heart thudded against her chest, adrenaline surging through her as she dropped the coffee, hot liquid splattering over her shoes, oblivious to her surroundings. Duty called. Kneeling beside Mrs. Thompson, Emily's hands trembled as she assessed the frail woman. The earlier glow of warmth faded to a rush of clammy dread, each second stretched since the last time she had acted in an emergency. Bystanders gawked, some whispering rumors of her nursing credentials, while others hesitated to act. "Call for help," she barked, feigning confidence as her own inner dialogue screamed doubt. What if she faltered? What if the whispers of her colleagues that her focus on her son Jake rendered her less competent became a reality? She needed to remain strong, both for Mrs. Thompson and Jake. As the paramedics arrived, her chest tightened, her thoughts spiraling. Was the trust of her colleagues waning? Her precious time off balancing her demanding job and single motherhood hung perilously in the balance. When it was over and Mrs. Thompson was whisked away, the crowd dispersed, but the weight of eyes lingered. Was she losing her touch? The days passed heavy with the cloud of guilt that hung over her. Jake's frown grew deeper each time she came home worn and distracted. He was 16. Didn't he deserve a mother whose focus was entirely on him? Their once carefree rapport had transformed into evasive conversations, filled with awkward silences. How could she juggle both a demanding profession and her son's need for attention? The guilt clawed at her insides, relentless and suffocating. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days turned into an uneasy routine. Two worlds colliding, Emily felt she was being pulled at both ends. The whispers of her coworkers morphed into a steady drumbeat in her mind. Was her commitment slipping? What if this wasn't just a juggling act? What if she was dropping the ball? Just when the internal chaos felt insurmountable, an unexpected encounter with Mrs. Thompson's granddaughter ignited a flicker of recognition within Emily. Their shared struggles, woven from tragedy and resilience, mirrored her own. In the shadow of that meeting, the weight pressed heavier. Emily felt herself at a crossroads. Should she continue this exhausting fight between her career and family, or dare to reclaim her identity? With every passing moment, the tension boiled over, and doubts spiraled deeper. Every inviting smile at work felt laced with accusation, while Jake's solitude echoed painfully in her heart. The desire to be both mom and nurse surged, fiery and unyielding, but doubts whispered, cruel and unforgiving. What if she couldn't do it? What if more would be lost than found? As Emily stood on the precipice, nothing felt certain. Only a consuming urge to uncover the truth behind Mrs. Thompson's artistic past loomed ahead, heightening the sense of urgency within her resolve. The beauty buried beneath layers of struggle waited to be revealed, reminding her that sometimes the strongest truths emerge from the shadows of unspoken lives, and hers might be one of them as well. Emily stood at the edge of her thoughts, with doubt cascading like a relentless tide over her resolve as she wrestled with the direction her life had taken. The encounter with Mrs. Thompson's granddaughter resonated deep within her, urging her to explore the hidden depths of storytelling, legacy, and connection. There had to be something in that woman's narrative that spoke to her own internal chaos, a way to weave her fragmented identity into a cohesive whole. It was during an ordinary evening, while Jake immersed himself in his video games, that Emily's subconscious began to surface. She rifled through the attic in search of family keepsakes, hoping to find something to bridge their widening gap. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the attic window as she unearthed an old box filled with her mother's letters and journals, chronicling her own attempts at juggling career and family. The ink was faded, yet the words pulsed with life, illuminating the struggle, a pursuit devoid of perfection, rich with authenticity. Sifting through her mother's experiences sparked a determination within Emily. She recalled her mother's resilience and her mother's dreams of being an artist, a passion lost to the demands of family life. This was the moment. What had she envisioned for herself in her quietest, most reflective moments? The answer propelled her forward. It was time to reclaim that spark, if only in small ways each day. As the weeks unfolded, Emily initiated a plan. She committed to volunteering at the community center every Saturday, hoping to honor Mrs. Thompson by telling stories to children, reinforcing the importance of art and expression. The first Saturday arrived, and though her nervousness gnawed at her stomach, she let the stories flow like life-giving water. As she captivated the children with tales of bravery and empathy, something inside her shifted. She was not just a nurse or a mother, but an artist in her own right. Gradually, her confidence blossomed. Jake noticed the light returning to her eyes, sparking conversations that stretched longer and deeper than they had in months. Instead of avoiding their connection, Emily embraced it, sharing her storytelling experiences with him. Each narrative shared acted as a thread, weaving them closer, allowing the warmth of affection to thaw their once frozen relationship. But as Emily grew more immersed in this newfound identity, lingering shadows of doubt still hovered. At work, tensions grew. One comment from a colleague, a passing remark about her commitment, sent waves of uncertainty crashing over her resolve. "You can't be everywhere, Emily," they said. The choice lay before her. In pursuing her passion, was she risking her career, her colleagues' trust? The question echoed loudly as her breaths quickened. At the same time, her volunteering work unearthed peculiar insights into Mrs. Thompson's past. As Emily delved deeper into the woman's stories, she sensed whispers of untold shame and repressed artistry begging to be revealed. What had Mrs. Thompson buried beneath the weight of obligations? This inquiry reflected Emily's own fears, mirroring the struggle between familial duty and personal aspiration. Determined not to falter under pressure, she resolved to confront the opinions of her colleagues head-on. It was time to own her choices. Yet with every step toward clarity, deeper questions arose. How could she navigate this treacherous territory? As she stood at that emotional crossroads, Emily faced a choice that would not only define her professional future, but also reclaim her self-worth. Unbeknownst to her, the need to unveil Mrs. Thompson's stories would unearth something deeply personal, myth and truth intertwined, revealing hidden strengths. The moment beckoned. Emily understood she had to embrace the storm ahead. The whispers of regret urged her forward. The time had come to confront her fears, unveil the story beneath the surface, and illuminate the ties that bind family, dreams, and legacy together. But could she truly bear the weight of the revelations that awaited on the other side? The sun filtered through the window, casting stripes of light across Emily's desk at the hospital. Her gaze drifted to the stack of paperwork demanding her attention, yet her mind pulled her elsewhere, back to the vivid stories she had spun to the children. The thrill of storytelling tugged at her, a siren call against the monotony of medical forms. There was a pulse in her heart, a reminder of the artist she yearned to be. But the echo of her colleagues' dismissal lingered, a specter of uncertainty undermining her revitalized spirit. "You can't be everywhere," echoed like a drumbeat in her mind. The remark festered, gnawing at the edges of her conviction. Was she truly capable of juggling her roles? Could she balance her passion for storytelling with her duties as a nurse and a mother?
The weight of those questions pressed down on her, threatening to drown her newfound artistic identity. In the sterile environment of the hospital, Emily began to notice cracks in her composure. The smile she wore, once genuine and inviting, started to feel like a mask. She walked the halls, delivering care, but felt the dissonance between her duties and desires. The connection she had tentatively formed with Jake was rekindling, yet her apprehension about sharing her artistic pursuits clouded her progress. One evening, while balancing her shift and helping an elderly patient, Emily faced an unexpected moment of clarity. Mrs. Adams, frail and delicate, suddenly gasped for breath and collapsed right before her. The panic surged through Emily's body as if her own heart were in jeopardy. Instinct kicked in. She quickly assessed the situation and called for help while performing CPR. The tension in the room escalated, and just as Emily felt the flicker of despair threaten to overcome her, Mrs. Adams coughed and gasped back to consciousness. The brief few minutes had felt like an eternity. Relief flooded through Emily, and in that moment of life returning, she realized something profound. Storytelling, whether it was in her role as a nurse or an artist, had the power to heal. It fueled connections, ignited passion, and ignited hope. Tales were not merely words, they were lifelines. It could bridge despair and joy. Her mind whirled with this new perspective as she helped Mrs. Adams regain her composure. Taking care of people was storytelling in its own right. Every diagnosis, treatment, and shared experience crafted a narrative rich with human emotion. Reflecting back on her mother's writings, Emily understood that embracing vulnerability was crucial, both in her profession and her artistry. With this realization stirring within her, she turned to Jake that evening. Instead of downplaying her storytelling sessions, she shared her experience with Mrs. Adams. She opened the door to conversations about more than just their day. She invited him into her internal landscape where art met healing. Jake listened, intrigued, and offered insights from his own video games where complex narratives shaped characters' journeys. They found common ground in this merging of worlds, a space to explore, encourage, and uplift each other. Yet, even as the evening progressed with promising exchanges, Emily sensed an undercurrent of resistance. Questions loomed large. Could she fortify her career while nurturing her artistic spirit? The possibility of her colleagues' judgment made her stomach twist. Determined to find her footing, Emily seized a moment to revisit Mrs. Thompson's stories, truths wrapped in layers of pain and ambition, perhaps mirroring her own struggles. Each tale carried lessons she was desperate to uncover. She felt a profound connection, knowing that unveiling these narratives could bridge her personal journey to Mrs. Thompson's. But would confronting her own truth empower her or become her undoing? As she embarked on this exploration, Emily sensed a monumental shift was imminent. Harnessing the power of storytelling could either elevate her endeavors or lead her down a precarious path. It was a gamble, one that demanded courage and introspection. The question loomed as darkness fell outside. Would she dare to expose the intimate truths that lay beneath her surface? What might those revelations reveal about the woman she hoped to become? Emily awoke with the sun barely peeking through her curtains, a gentle reminder of the promise of a new day. However, the weight of her decisions lingered heavily in her chest. Those few moments with Mrs. Adams, the life and death struggle, and the subsequent realization of the healing nature of storytelling felt monumental. Yet doubt still knocked unabashedly at the door of her mind. Could she truly intertwine her passion for storytelling with her role as a caregiver without falling apart? At the hospital, the corridors buzzed with the regular chaos of medical life. Nurses hurried past, each lost in their own rhythm of patient care. For a fleeting moment, Emily longed to disappear among them, to let the day's demands carry her away from the weight of introspection. But as the morning progressed, she found that hadn't brought her peace. Instead, it reignited the urgency to forge a path that united her commitments and aspirations. In an effort to bridge her two worlds, Emily decided to extend her storytelling sessions beyond the children's ward. The prospect thrilled her. It felt like wrapping her old childhood dreams in her present-day responsibilities. Yet crippling apprehension followed close behind. As she prepared for her next shift, she formulated a plan. She would share stories with the elderly patients too, perhaps drawing from Mrs. Thompson's narratives, echoing her mother's voice from the past. The air was tense when she entered the care unit. A few elderly patients settled in their chairs, sharing laughter over memories that only they understood. Each snippet of joy felt like a balm on Emily's uncertainty, reminding her of the common threads that bind everyone through stories. Gathering her bravery, she cleared her throat, capturing their attention. "May I share a story with you all?" she asked softly, excitement and nerves swirling within her. The room quieted, eyes turned to her. Their eager nods felt like an invitation, a bridge inviting her onto new ground. As she spoke, weaving a tale filled with elements of hope and resilience, Emily noticed a shift in her audience. Faces lit up, transcending the confines of their physical limitations. The story became a shared experience. The laughter, the gasps, and the murmurs allowed room for connections to blossom. In those moments of storytelling, she felt the fabric of her identity expanding, intertwining her role as a caregiver with her artistic flame. However, she also noticed that not all expressions were joyful. A few patients watched her closely, some older than others, with eyes glazed by the weight of their own mysteries. It was in one of those quiet exchanges that she recognized an elderly man, Mr. Sullivan, whose face bore a story of its own, trapped in silence. When the storytelling session ended, Emily made her way to him. "Mr. Sullivan, I'd love to hear more about you," she said, a gentle invitation framing her words. For a moment he hesitated, his gaze distant. Then, slowly, like the turning of a page, he began to share a tale that danced between laughter and tears, a painful memory of a lost loved one entwined with moments of glorious joy. Listening, Emily felt the truth of their shared humanity, mirroring her own struggles and joys. Yet as he spoke, a revelation clung to the air. With every shared story, a deeper understanding unfolded between them. She realized that vulnerability in storytelling could be a source of profound healing, not just for herself, but for those around her. As she engaged with Mr. Sullivan, she felt emboldened. The truth ignited a fire within her. However, the moment was pierced by a reality. The fragility of their circumstances loomed like a dark cloud overhead. Her internal conflict returned, this time sharper. Could she continue delving into others' stories while grappling with the unresolved aspects of her own life? The faces around her demanded more than just the recalling of tales. They beckoned her to confront her own intertwined narratives. That evening, as fatigue settled in, Emily sat down to write, pouring her thoughts onto the pages. She understood now that her own story needed unfolding too. Her artistic side, tangled with her compassionate heart, yearned for clarity. Just as she empowered others with stories, there existed a responsibility to herself. In the hush of the nighttime stillness, the question loomed larger than before. Was she ready to confront the deeper truths hidden within her own narrative? Would exposing those delicate layers serve as a pathway to her growth or fracture her entire world? The answer felt just within her grasp, tantalizing yet terrifying, a reality waiting to be explored. Emily stepped into the care unit once again, her heart pounding with a cocktail of fear and anticipation. She could no longer ignore the reverberations of her encounters, each one spinning a web that intertwined with her own reality. Today, she intended to go deeper, not just with her patients, but with herself. As she organized her notes, her fingers trembled slightly. The story she planned to share bore a weight that felt different, raw and unedited. She could feel her own silence echoing in her mind, urging her to break free from the shackles of self-doubt. It had become essential for her to not only give voice to others, but also to find her own in the cacophony of emotions swirling around her. Entering the unit, she observed Mr. Sullivan's familiar face, a mixture of vulnerability and strength within his lined features. She decided to sit beside him rather than stand at the front. The change of perspective felt intimate, inviting, a stark contrast to her earlier confidence. "Good morning, Mr. Sullivan," she greeted, her heart racing as she locked eyes with him. "Today I'd like us to share a story together." His brow lifted, a flicker of curiosity ignited recognition in his own past. It was as if he sensed the shift in her demeanor. The dialogue was no longer just about her performing. It was a collaborative exploration that felt like a revelation waiting to emerge. As she began narrating a story of loss and redemption, exploring themes of honesty and regret, Emily felt her own emotions churning within. The narrative spoke not just of the fictional characters, but also of her internal dialogues, particularly the struggle with her own fears. Today, she was not merely a storyteller, she was a participant in a shared experience. Mr. Sullivan listened quietly at first, but soon a small smile crept onto his face. His eyes sparkled, and as she reached the crescendo of her tale, he leaned in closer. It felt as though he wasn't just identifying with the character's heartbreak, he was reflecting on his own life, examining scars and celebrations within his own silence. "Miss Emily," he began, his voice laced with reverence, "I've known loss. I was once a version of your story, wandering in the shadows, unable to face the light. But, my dear, don't you know, there is power in sharing our truths." Her throat tightened as she absorbed his words. The frightened edges of her own narrative fused with his wisdom, igniting a spark she hadn't anticipated. This was the connection she craved, not simply a caregiver to a patient, but as two souls bravely uncovering truths buried beneath the weight of experience. At the end of the session, she asked him the question that had lingered in her mind for weeks. What if I allowed myself to be truly seen? What if I shared my story too? His response resonated, filled with gravity. "Fear not the exposing, for healing runs deep in honesty. You owe it to yourself to release the tales trapped within." As their eyes locked, Emily felt a magnetic pull towards a realization that seemed almost palpable. Perhaps her path was not just about merging storytelling with caregiving. It was about unearthing her own narrative, a process that would require courage and vulnerability. That night, she sat with her journal once more, but this time her pen did not hesitate. She poured everything onto the page. Childhood experiences, moments of failure, the joys she tucked away like treasures. Each word unfurled a part of her that had long remained hidden. The revelations surprised her, hidden competencies and strengths unfurling with every sentence. She discovered resilience she never knew she had, buried beneath layers of doubt and anticipation. Consequently, she felt a sense of liberation. Yet an unsettling thought gnawed at the back of her mind. What lay ahead as she danced with these discoveries? The next morning, a new fear seized her. Was she ready to confront the emotional chaos of her own storytelling? Would sharing her narrative away from the safety of her notes enhance or dismantle her burgeoning sense of self? Pondering over these questions, she glanced at her phone, catching sight of a message that sent her heart racing, a call for all caregivers to share their stories in a local gathering. It posed a question that sent shivers down her spine. Would she dare to step into that arena? The moment of truth approached. Could she step forward and risk exposing her fragmented self to others? The silent challenge brewed beneath her resolve, propelling her toward an imminent confrontation with her own fears and aspirations. Emily stood at the threshold of her apartment, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. The echo of Mr. Sullivan's words reverberated within her. "Fear not the exposing." Yet how could she face the judgment of others, including her peers? The thought of baring her soul ignited a flicker of panic, yet it was overshadowed by a burgeoning desire to embrace her own vulnerability. She set her journal aside and moved toward the mirror. Looking at her reflection, she noticed the uncertainty shimmering in her eyes. Doubt whispered insidiously. What if the exposure she craved became a weapon against her? What if her truths resonated as unworthy to those who heard them? As she stood there, she remembered how Mr. Sullivan had examined his own scars. He had transformed pain into strength just through a simple conversation. What if she, too, could redefine her narrative? She recalled a previous session where she had shared a simple but meaningful story about a child who found joy in the little things, an exercise meant to teach the patients to appreciate moments amid hardship. That day it had felt empowering, but this felt completely different. This was about her. A decision settled deep within her. Emily grabbed her phone, heart racing as she typed a tentative reply to the invitation. Just clicking send felt insurmountable, but she did it. Immediately, waves of uncertainty washed over her. Had she acted too hastily? Did she truly possess a worthy narrative to share? The days leading up to the gathering were filled with a whirlwind of thoughts. She revisited her childhood, the complexities of her relationships, the weight of her choices. Each reflection unearthed raw emotions, some that brought tears, others laughter, and a few moments of stark clarity.
She craved authenticity, but the fear of vulnerability remained. The night before the gathering, she lay awake, contemplating how to structure her thoughts. Strategies cascaded through her mind. Should she anchor her story in the present, weaving in past experiences, or showcase a single moment that encapsulated her journey? Sleep eluded her, spiraling into a series of what-ifs. What if no one connected with her? What if they were indifferent, or worse, critical? Deep down, she questioned whether sharing her truth was an act of bravery or foolishness. The morning of the gathering arrived, gray skies overhead reflecting the storm within her. Standing in front of her closet felt akin to facing an adversary. Each outfit represented a different persona, some confident, others hesitant. She settled on a simple yet professional dress, determined to avoid anything that screamed desperation for approval. As she entered the venue, her pulse raced. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, camaraderie, shared stories, and a palpable connection among the caregivers. Yet her feet felt rooted to the spot, fraught with anxiety. She noticed a circle forming where others began sharing their stories, igniting a mixture of excitement and dread within her. Finally, an invitation to the podium. The time had come. Stepping forward felt surreal. The world around her dissolved into a blur. As Emily glanced at the expectant faces, and her heart raced in unison with the clock ticking in her mind. "Hello, everyone. My name is Emily," she began, her voice wavering, "and I'm here to share the fragments of my story." She could feel her apprehensions threatening to seep out, but she pressed on. Each word became a leap of faith, tethered together by memories she thought long buried. Faces softened around her, nods of understanding radiated warmth, and, as she breathed deeply, an unfamiliar calmness settled within her. Yet just as she gained momentum, a sudden flicker of doubt wove its way back. What truths lie hidden, waiting to surface? Would the story she was weaving end with a celebration or a confrontation she hadn't foreseen? The ends of her narrative beckoned, trembling with unresolved questions and an earnest invitation for exploration in the moments to come. With renewed bravado she continued, unaware of the implications of her vulnerability. But in the back of her mind, a shadow whispered, what awaited discovery at the end of this revealing journey? As Emily delved deeper into her story, the words flowed more freely. Each sentence dripped with authenticity, layered with the echoes of her past experiences. She began to understand that sharing her truth wasn't merely an act of disclosure,
It was an act of courage that could inspire others. She found a rhythm, a dance between her heart and mind, and she harnessed that palpable energy in the room. But just as her voice grew steadier, memories surfaced, bringing with them uncertainty. What if she had overlooked the painful aspects of her tale? In the midst of sharing a poignant moment, her voice quivered, forced to wade through a sea of mixed emotions. A small rush of insight took her by surprise. In that very instant of vulnerability, she realized how prevalent her fear of judgment had been. It shifted from her chest to her throat, tightening as she confronted the thoughts that plagued her. "What will they think of me?" she whispered internally, but pushed the notion aside, reminding herself of Mr. Sullivan's encouragement. She slowly peeled back layers that had long shielded her from the light. As the story continued to unfold, she revealed her struggles, intertwined with moments of bravery. When she spoke of a time when she chose to embrace a challenging situation at work rather than run from it, a flicker of realization ignited within her. She recognized her relentless pursuit of growth despite her failings. "Every step I took was as much a testament to my drive as it was a chorus of my fears," she articulated, her voice clearer and more confident. Emily began to see daylight filtering through the shadows of her insecurities. Each confession held the possibility of connection, a bond illuminating the humanity shared in their experiences. People in the audience leaned forward, eyes bright and attentive. Emily found solace in their nods, a reassurance that what she laid bare resonated with them. Moment by moment, she transformed her hesitations into strengths. The weight of expectations fell away like autumn leaves, and finally she could breathe. Just as she approached the climax of her narrative, a sudden rush of apprehension clawed at her. The lingering thought of others' verdict began to creep back. Who was she to think her experiences held any value? Would her honesty become her undoing? Visibly shaking, she willed herself to confront that fear head-on. With a deep breath, she spoke of an encounter she'd had in a parking lot with an elderly woman who had collapsed. It was an ordinary moment that turned extraordinary, a reflection of kindness she had extended even when she felt enervated by her own challenges. "I realized that moments of courage don't require a grand stage. Sometimes they're whispered in a quiet act of compassion," she said. As she shared this tale, tears brimmed in her eyes, but they were ones of clarity, not pain. She understood that her truths were not just valuable, they were essential. As she concluded her story, the applause of the audience surged like a tide, sweeping away her lingering doubts and fears. In that moment, a sense of fulfillment enveloped her, illustrating how her vulnerability had transformed into a shared strength. But as she stepped down from the podium, an uneasy thought clung to her consciousness. A revelation had dawned that might shatter the fragile peace she felt. What if there were more stories waiting to be told? Stories that had the power to unravel her newfound courage? What if those stories were too raw, too exposed, containing hidden truths she feared would expose her more than she was ready to reveal? The warmth of connection still lingered, yet the shadows of deeper exploration trembled enticingly at the edges. Stepping away from the podium, Emily felt a strange interplay of triumph and trepidation. The echoes of applause faded, replaced by the thrum of her own heartbeat, now a heavy drum in her chest. Behind the warm glow of validation that enveloped her, an unsettling thought gnawed at her mind. Had she truly laid enough of herself bare? Could courage exist without confronting the truths she had kept hidden? The very act of storytelling had revealed splintered reflections of her past. Yet she wondered what lurked behind those shards. Her journey had been perilous, but the unexplored parts of her narrative loomed larger in her consciousness, a specter waiting to emerge. A wave of disquiet swept over Emily as she navigated through the fading crowd. Each friendless smile felt like a reminder of the fragments she had yet to share. The elderly woman's fainting episode stood stark in her memory, not just because of the moment itself, but because it had been a junction, an intersection where her strength began to breathe life into her vulnerability. What about all those moments when she hadn't risen to the occasion? The instances of self-doubt and missed opportunities. A voice inside her seemed to urge, explore those shadows. They hold immeasurable value. Seated at a corner table, away from the bustling chatter, she pulled out her notebook. The blank pages sparked her imagination and fear alike. What would she write? Should she recount the less glamorous failures, or focus on her metamorphosis? Could she cultivate the same connection with her future entries? A fleeting image of her first job surfaced. Flustered by the rapid pace of her new environment, she had stumbled during presentations, fumbling with words that danced just out of reach. In those early days, any semblance of confidence had felt like a fragile facade. The collective scrutiny of her colleagues had weighed heavily, pushing her to tighten her grip on perfection. Reluctantly, she pressed pen to paper, her hand trembling, as if afraid of what the ink might unveil. I was afraid of failing, afraid of being seen as incompetent. The words were cathartic, releasing a pent-up frustration she had stowed away for years. With each line, she dug deeper, not just recounting her successes, but dissecting her missteps, recognizing how they had intricately woven into her fabric. She felt her insight blooming into consciousness. Every failure bore a lesson. She questioned her previous inclination to erase them, to hide in the shadows of her triumphs. As the sun dipped lower, pulling shades of gold across the sky, a new realization ignited within her. Her journey was not merely about broadcasting her courage, it was about weaving together the opposites of her experiences. The willingness to share the full spectrum of her truth could pave the way for others to embrace their own narratives. Just then, a shadow passed before her, and she looked up to see Mr. Sullivan approaching. His brows were furrowed, an intensity in his gaze. "Emily, can we talk?" he asked, taking a seat opposite her. The urgency in his tone snapped her back to reality. The lightness of writing faded as doubt crept in again. Was he addressing her story as a triumph, or had she overlooked something critical in the narrative she shared? The moment felt charged, a quiet but potent current coursing between them. As his mouth opened to speak, it struck her. This was more than a simple conversation. It was a confrontation with the very thing she feared most, the uncharted depths she had yet to explore. "Of course," she replied, steeling herself for whatever was to come. The shadows that lingered alongside her newfound courage may soon demand illumination. Would she be ready to face the truth she had yet to confront? Mr. Sullivan's gaze bored into Emily as he leaned forward, the weight of 1,000 questions resting between them. "I wanted to talk about your presentation," he began, his voice steady despite the storm brewing in her mind. "You've made incredible progress, but I think you're ready for something more challenging." The notion of more challenging sent an exhilarating tremor through her. Was this a promotion? A chance to lead a new project? Simultaneously, a deep unease crept in. What if she wasn't ready? What if she failed again? "Thank you, I appreciate that," she replied, aware of how her voice might falter. "What do you have in mind?" He took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "I want you to lead the upcoming team initiative on digital strategy. It's key to our growth this year, and I believe your insights would provide the fresh perspective we need." Her heart raced. This was an opportunity to showcase her skills, but the fear of revealing inadequacies loomed overhead, heavy and unwavering. "Lead the team? I have limited experience with digital strategy," she admitted, the vulnerability of her words hanging in the air. He met her gaze, his expression unwavering. "That's the point, Emily. You bring a unique perspective because you're not bound by the conventional approach. Your story matters, and I believe it can influence our direction. But first, You seem hesitant to embrace all aspects of your narrative, the successful and the flawed. Why is that? The question sliced through her defenses, laying bare her insecurities. I worry that exposing my weaknesses will undermine my credibility, she confessed, her heart beating loudly in her ears. Every leader has struggles, Emily.
It's how we rise above those challenges that defines us. Sharing your journey authentically could empower your team. His insight reverberated within her. The essence of her earlier revelations sifted through her thoughts. Could embracing her flaws as a part of her narrative truly become a source of strength? What if I stumble? What if my past hinders any progress I've made? She asked, her voice dipping into a whisper of desperation. That's part of the journey, Mr. Sullivan replied, pushing back with gentle conviction. Leadership isn't about being infallible. It's about resilience. It's not only how you rise after you fall, but how you bring others along with you. The implications of his words settled into her, profoundly weighty. Each failure she had feared could instead serve as a catalyst for growth, not just for herself, but for her entire team. She envisioned a team meeting transformed from a perfunctory gathering into a narrative of shared experiences. Okay, she said, the resolve strengthening in her voice. I'll accept the challenge, but I need to focus on crafting a space where others feel empowered to share their stories too. A flicker of pride danced in Mr. Sullivan's eyes. That's the spirit I'm looking for. Just remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. Trust in the process. As he stood up to leave, urgency flooded her thoughts. The faint echoes of applause mixed with the specter of her earlier failures loomed larger than before. Mr. Sullivan, wait! He turned back, a question in his eyes. What if I feel overwhelmed? What if the shadows of my earlier failures seep into this new role? I'll be here to support you, Emily, but you have to confront those shadows. Only then can you transform them. Watching him walk away, adrenaline coursed through her veins. The shadows that had once paralyzed her were now challenges to scale. She felt a growing determination to dig deeper into her narrative, to understand her power fully and move forward with authenticity. Could she rise above the discomfort lurking in those shadows, or would they re-emerge to disrupt her newfound purpose? The looming question electrified her nerves as she pondered her next steps, the challenge now set in motion. What awaited her on this uncharted path would demand her courage, not just to lead, but to be unapologetically herself. As the days turned into weeks, Emily navigated the exhilarating yet daunting realm of her new role. The weight of her decision to embrace vulnerability as a leader settled on her shoulders like both a mantle of honor and a reminder of the shadows lurking just beneath the surface. With each meeting, each strategy session, she felt the pulse of her identity, both nurse and storyteller, merge into something entirely transformative. Emily understood that the core of effective leadership lay in authenticity, and as she opened up about her own challenges, she witnessed an extraordinary shift among her team. Colleagues began to share their own struggles and triumphs, creating a space of trust that flourished with every shared narrative. The conference room, once filled with sterile discussions on metrics and deadlines, now buzzed with rich stories that wove a tapestry of connection and understanding. With every shared vulnerability, she felt layers of her own fears peeling away. Where there had once been doubt about her capabilities, a solid confidence began to root. She led discussions on digital strategy not only equipped with knowledge, but also with heartfelt insights from her own experiences of failure and resilience. Emily realized that these very moments of honesty fortified her team, transforming them into advocates of one another's strengths and weaknesses. On one occasion, as she concluded a particularly vibrant meeting, her colleague Jessica approached her. "Emily, your openness about your fears inspires me," Jessica admitted, a newfound spark in her eyes. "I'd always thought leadership meant having it all together. You've shown me that it's about collective growth." Such comments buoyed Emily's burgeoning confidence, validating her journey of empowerment. Yet, while outwardly thriving, Emily continued to wrestle with a persistent question. Could she fully confront the deeper truths of her personal narrative?
The urgency to explore her past, the moments when she felt most inadequate, whispered insistently in her ear. One evening, after a long day at the hospital, she sat with her journal and began to scribble those unspoken regrets. The pen felt heavy, yet as she wrote, she felt lighter. One entry recounted her early days as a nurse, battling self-doubt while caring for patients. She remembered a time when she had struggled to connect with a grieving family. Fear had paralyzed her, leading to missed opportunities for compassion where she could have truly made a difference. Reflecting on that moment, she began to see it not just as an error, but as a stepping stone towards gratitude for the lessons learned. The act of writing unlocked other memories, each revealing nuances of her life she had previously suppressed. It's not that she wanted to forget her failures. Instead, she embraced them as essential to defining who she had become. This realization invigorated her. She could stand unwavering in her truth, not just for herself, but as a beacon for others. With renewed clarity, Emily volunteered to share her story at the next community forum. The once divisive fear of judgment transformed into palpable anticipation. Her narrative, intertwined with her journey in both caregiving and leadership, was now steeped in authenticity that could resonate powerfully with others facing their own battles. On the day of the presentation, she took the stage, feeling a solid grounding beneath her feet. She spoke openly about her fears, her early missteps, and, most importantly, the breakthroughs she'd achieved through courage and vulnerability. As she articulated her journey, she witnessed firsthand the impact of shared experience, a connective thread radiating through the audience, igniting hope and understanding. At that moment, she knew she had accomplished something beyond mere success. She had demonstrated her competence as both a nurse and a leader. Acknowledgement flowed in the form of smiles, nods, and whispered conversations among attendees. The applause that erupted was not just for her story, but for the bravery that underscored every word she had shared. The culmination of her journey brought an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Emily emerged not only as an efficient leader, but as an empowered individual who had conquered the chaos of self-doubt. What was once an array of fragmented identities now thrived cohesively. A nurse who cared, a storyteller who connected, and a leader who inspired. Her transformation was no longer merely about personal achievements. It became part of a broader narrative, instilling strength in others who could now embrace their own complexities without shame. As Emily stepped off the stage, the sun shone brighter outside, a symbol of the new chapter waiting to unfold. She had harnessed the power of storytelling, shaping her trajectory into one filled with purpose and clarity. Authenticity had proven to be her greatest ally, illuminating connections rich in love, resilience, and shared humanity. Now, more than ever, she stood resolute in her identity, a testament to the strength found within, embracing one's truths. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.